This video was created by Danny Kessler, Associate Professor at Dongsu University and Korea's first PhD in wellness tourism. Most people view 𝗵𝗀 as a wild, unmanaged expanse, a chaotic environment governed by its own biological rhythms. Consequently, overworked professionals and students often treat a casual weekend hike through these woods as a reliable cure for burnout. But in South Korea, the government takes a strictly clinical approach to the woods. Here, the state regulates the exact density of trees required to achieve specific health outcomes. A designated healing forest is legally distinct from a public park or a nature reserve. Stepping into these regulated zones constitutes a statutorily defined medical intervention. To understand this framework, we must look at the biological forest itself simply as the hardware. On its own, this hardware is highly variable. Wind, temperature, and seasonal shifts make it difficult to produce a consistent clinical outcome. To make that hardware useful for medical purposes, it requires an operating system. In Korea, that operating system is the strict legal and biological governance applied by the state. The legislation dictates precise atmospheric inputs, transforming a chaotic natural space into a reliable, measurable intervention tool. The state structures this process as a strict environment, biology, behavior input system. A visitor cannot achieve clinical healing by simply showing up. They must be guided through a structured application of this system. Without the operating system, the hardware provides an unpredictable environment rather than a standardized treatment. The primary objective of this framework is to establish predictable governance over an unpredictable landscape. Clinical healing is engineered by forcing unpredictable nature through a predictable operational matrix. This approach is codified in the Forestry, Culture, and Recreation Act. Under this legislation, these natural sites are removed from the jurisdiction of standard tourism operators. The law establishes precise land scale thresholds that trigger mandatory state intervention. As this diagram shows, if a forest environment exceeds 500,000 square meters, its legal classification shifts. At this scale, the law mandates the deployment of at least 3 state-certified instructors to the site. These certified professionals are not typical tour guides. They do not focus on highlighting scenic views or identifying local wildlife. Their mandate is the continuous management of atmospheric variables, prioritizing biometric data over visitor entertainment. This infrastructure establishes a regulated supply-side engine for wellness. The law forces the environment to be verified as medically viable long before a tourist is permitted to arrive. On the ground, executing this protocol requires a specialized technical skill set. These instructors operate precisely within the strict administrative framework of the government's Forest Welfare Service, maintaining constant oversight. The first atmospheric variable they manage is the concentration of terpenes in the air. Terpenes are volatile organic compounds emitted by trees. The state monitors their density because they directly stimulate the human immune system. The second required atmospheric variable is anion density. Anions are negatively charged air molecules. In concentrated doses, they interact with the respiratory system to increase cellular oxygen absorption. Instructors calibrate inputs to hit a primary biological target, boosting natural killer or NK cell activity. NK cells are white blood cells that destroy diseased tissues. Elevating their activity provides a monitored, clinically significant endpoint. These controlled atmospheric inputs also result in a measurable reduction in systemic inflammation. Instructors track these biological recovery protocols in real time, matching biometric feedback against the forest's chemical output. The precision of this process mirrors a laboratory experiment rather than a typical wellness retreat. This biological exchange does not occur passively. The state ensures the specific chemical output of the canopy is delivered to the patient. By treating the forest as a strictly regulated chemical laboratory, the government ensures the biological outcome is a measured certainty. When we examine these policies within academic and professional spaces, a specific market reality emerges. The Korean model issues a distinct professional mandate to wellness tourism practitioners everywhere: stop selling scenery. The industry is moving towards prescribing nature and selling measured clinical outcomes. However, this creates a scalability paradox. Maintaining medical-grade natural environments requires continuous state funding. Beyond the financial cost, this model demands legislative frameworks and institutional training to survive. This leaves the industry with a question: Can this level of statutory wellness be exported, or is it geographically and politically isolated to Korea? Unmanaged nature is chaotic, which prevents it from being inherently therapeutic. Pillar 1 requires that healing forests are governed strictly as legal spaces. Operating outside of a legal definition removes the environment's medical validity. Pillar 2 requires mandatory state certification to ensure clinical-grade delivery. Tour guides cannot substitute for the expertise of biological professionals. Pillar 3 mandates that managing atmospheric variables remains the primary objective. This reality corrects the common professional misunderstanding that nature alone is a therapeutic product. Nature remains wild and indifferent to human health. Wellness is managed, engineered, and dependent on strict governance. Attempting to achieve a predictable health outcome without predictable governance is a failure in the design of wellness tourism. Ultimately, if the chemical output of the trees cannot be accurately measured, the experience is merely a walk. But when you apply the Forestry Act, that walk becomes the act of filling a medical prescription. The protocol takes precedence over the park. This video was created by Danny Kessler, Associate Professor at Dongsa University and Korea's first PhD in Wellness Tourism.